All right, welcome to the first episode of Vinnie's Apron. Today we are making bread, just simple bread. The reason I'm making this cooking show is so that everyone can learn how to make the things that everyone used to be able to make. I don't think very many people make fresh bread anymore. So I kind of want to bring it back. And it's a simple thing. I'll show you that today. The very first thing you'll do is get a measuring cup. And you want to measure off 2 1/4 cups of water. And I just threw it in a mason jar and I microwave it. I could have used anything. I just have a bunch of mason jars around for other things. So I measure off 2 1/4 cups, dump it in my mixing bowl. I'm in Utah, so I'm a little dry. Okay, next thing I do is I get some kind of yeast. A couple different brands here. This is generic brand. This is Fleischmann's. There's a lot of different yeast brands out there. Use what you like. Ask around. I'm using this Rapid Rise. Seems to work best here in the high altitude of Utah. And I snip off one of those packets. They're usually sold in 3 at a time packets. You snip off just one packet, dump it in here. I've already done that because you got to let that sit for about 10 minutes. Next thing you do is, if you have one, get rid of that regular mixing bowl and use the hook if you have a hook. You might not have one, and don't sweat it if you don't have it. It's okay. Next thing you want to do is put in 3 cups, and honestly I usually use 4 cups of flour. There's uno, dos, sorry, I probably should say it in English so as not to confuse some of you guys, but 1, 2, and I'm actually at the end of this, so there's 3. I just have bread flour in this case. You don't have to use bread flour. You can use just a generic flour. I knew I was running out, so I got another bag, and this is my 3rd cup of flour now. And sorry, 3rd is in there. This is my 4th cup of flour. And I cheat and mix it in this. Makes it simple and easy. You can do it on this cutting board and kind of makes it a little bit harder, is my opinion. That doing it by hand on the cutting board, it's a lot of work. And it's awesome to see. You probably saw moms and grandmas making their own bread and just kneading it by hand, mixing it right on the board. This is the quick and easy version. You'll notice that it'll thicken up. It gets nice and thick. And as it gets thick in the mixing bowl, you want to slowly add some more of this. Now, I probably should tell you that if you do use one of these older, or just the standard mixing things, it's probably going to cause you some trouble because mixing bread, it gets very glutinous-y. That's not a word, right? But it gets really sticky and thick, and it's hard for a regular beater to get through it. So don't use that. I think I said at the beginning it's okay, but don't. Use a kneading one. If you don't have a kneading one, you're going to have to mix it by hand. Not a big thing, just take you a little longer, and it's a good workout for your hands. I'm at the point now where I can go ahead and mix in some more. So, because I'm using this kneading thing, I'm just going to slowly mix that together, and I just let that go. I just slowly let it go. Once I've mixed in all 6 cups, that's 6 cups. So I started with 4, I added another one, mixed it a little bit more, let it get a little more sticky, and then I put in my 6th one. Sometimes you want to do 6.5 if it seems kind of too wet. You can go a little more. I usually just go to 6 and look at it and then add some more if it needs it. But usually 6 is perfect. It's spot on. Once I finish, I cheat and I stop this. I lift up my beater, and you can see how stringy it is. I get all the bread dough off of there and get it down in here, and then I just cover. Just use this. I just cover this whole thing with a cloth, and I let it sit inside of here normally. Today I did it different because I knew I was going to be doing a show, and I actually prepped ahead and I have one that is ready. Now what I'll do is, normally it would be in there, I'll just put the hook back down in there and I'll turn it on and mix it up again. Again, I'm kneading that bread. But I have to let that wait for 2 hours. This is 2 hours old. You can see it's grown huge. It's really big. And now that I've got that, let it rise for 2 hours. And while I'm doing the 2 hour thing, I am just going to make other preparations, right? I can go check the TV and see what games are on. I can play some video games, all kinds of different things. I come back in 2 hours and I knead it down again. And once I knead it down again, I'm gonna roll it up in a dough ball and put it into these pans. Now I have some oil here and I have a paper towel. I'm going to prep these. By just putting some oil on this paper towel. And I am going to spread this oil around inside of my little dough pans. This is one of the things you can do while you're waiting that 2 hours, right? Now that I've got that in there, and I'm just going to put a little more because I can use that. This same one I can use for my other pan. And I'm just going to get it all the way around to my pan. Make sure that oil is just all over the sides and the bottom, everywhere. And then once I've done that, I've prepped these pans. I'm going to go ahead and put it on in some cornmeal. And I just need a little tiny bit. I just sprinkle it in. And I try and get the sides. Just sprinkle it all over. And now you're probably thinking, Vince, why do you have 2 pans? Well, the amount that we make, and that's the standard amount you usually always make, that amount is enough for 2. So you want to, once you blend this up again, you'll cut this in half and mix it up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cheat. This one's actually gone enough. I usually get a little flour on my hands too. Make sure I have a lot of flour on my hands so it doesn't stick to my hands as much. And I'm going to go ahead and get all of this dough off of my blender. That's off my blender hook. I can go ahead and just get this cleaned up. The more I clean up now, the less I have to clean up later. And I throw it in there. Remember, this is my after dough that is ready to go. I'm going to let that sit. And I'm going to use my good one, right? This one's been rising for 2 hours now. So I'm just going to knead this up. You'll notice I put it on this board and this is already floured. So I can knead this. Normally I do that with this, but I do knead it a little bit. And you'll notice that I knead it down and then I turn it and I flip it and knead it again. And I'm always turning it one way. I'm always just going that same way. So I turn it again, flip it one more time. And I'm going to do it one more time for good luck because it's live on air. And now that I've done that, I'm going to just take a knife and I'm going to cut this in half. You'll notice now that I've cut this in half, I'm going to just beat it down one more time. And then I'm going to start to make a ball out of it. And I kind of turned it in on itself, right? So I get this good little ball. And I just plunk it in there. And get a good little ball. You can see I'm working on it a little. Again, I let this do most of the work for me, but I still want to handle it a little bit just to get it into these balls. So once I have it in the pan, I'm going to set this somewhere. again, like I did the first time, where I set this and let it sit for 2 hours. This time, I'm going to cover this, and I just cover it with one of my cloths, and I'll let it sit for half an hour. Once I've done that for half an hour, this should rise up so that I see just a little bump over top, like kind of coming through the cloth. I should see this bump coming up just a little bit. And after I've done that, while I'm waiting that half hour, I'm going to turn on the oven to 350. By the time that half hour is, I've waited that half hour, the oven's hot, ready to go, and I throw that into the oven. Once I get it out of the oven, I have bread. And I actually just slide that bread right out of those pans as soon as I get it out of the oven. You'll notice I put it on a cooling rack, and that just lets the bread cool off. I don't leave it in the pans to do that. I found that when I do that, it gets the outside kind of humid, and it just doesn't turn out as great. One of the other things I noticed too is do not cut into your bread as soon as it comes out of the oven. You gotta wait like 10 minutes for it to come out. And in this case, I've already waited 10 minutes. I've been waiting for a while. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut into my bread. And this is fresh bread. I made it. Everything that went into it, I know there's no preservatives, there's no nothing. It's just flour, oil, salt, yeast, and water. I forgot to tell you about the salt. And